So a little background about myself. I have a bachelor degree in computer science. I used to build things and then break things, and then I got into cybersecurity. So that's when I got my master's in cybersecurity. Then I realized cybersecurity is about protecting business. So I got my MBA. Then further down the road, as I gained more experience and knowledge, I realized at the end of the day, it's all about people. Because bad guys use those certain psychological techniques, and we, on a defending side, we are also supposed to know, understand, so we can better defend ourselves and fight the good fight. So with that, let's get started about organizational behavior. So what is organizational behavior? It's a field of study that focuses on understanding how individuals and groups behave within the setting of an organization. One of the key elements that is essential within this organizational behavior and understanding how this dynamics work is the concept of motivation. So what drives people? Why do people do certain things? How is this behavior driven? There are a bunch of theories out there that talks about the motivation, what kind of drives people. Among many things, there's a combination of these different elements that you see on the screen, which is needs, incentives, goals, and reinforces. A combination of these things together has a direct correlation to the motivating employees and staff. So basically, it is exploring what employees are driven with. A brief overview of all these different elements. So I'll start with need. That I think is pretty clear. These are internal desires, wants, psychological or physiological deficiencies that drive behavior, such as safety, right? These needs are fundamental to human motivation, and satisfying them can provide a sense of fulfillment and motivation to continue pursuing goals. I think that's pretty clear. We all are goal-driven. And then as part of this process is called incentivizing. So what is in it for me? That's, I guess, the bigger question. Why do people have to follow certain things or lack of, if you will? So these are external stimulations or rewards to motivate or encourage specific type of a behavior. They can be tangible, such as money and other forms of compensations, or intangible, such as praise or recognition. So the idea behind using incentives is basically the individual's motivation and move them or try to engage them in a specific behavior that if we provide them with, let's say, a reward or a positive reinforcement, a good thing will come out of that. Or if there are negative reinforcements or negative motivators or incentives, that can probably drive the behavior as well. Now, how effective these are, that's a different discussion. Goals. We are driven by goals. Every morning when we wake up, there are certain tasks or goals that we want to accomplish. Without goals, most likely humans won't move any further, right? So goals are specific, measurable, and attainable objectives individuals strive to achieve. They can be short-term or long-term. We all have them. They can be intrinsic or extrinsic. So intrinsic basically refers to internal motivators that comes from within the inside of an individual. It could be a sense of accomplishment, enjoyment, or interest. Extrinsic motivators are the ones that comes from external factors such as reward, incentives, or sometimes punishment. Now, next one is basically reinforces. So I think I briefly mentioned that. Are the consequences or outcome of a behavior that influences the likelihood of that behavior being repeated. So how are we going to reinforce all the different needs and wants of organization when it comes to defining a human being? How can we make sure our workforce follows them, and how can we reinforce it? They can be positive or negative. So I did talk about the desirable outcomes and the likelihood of behavior being repeated. That's when the reinforcers come in. Those are sometimes positive and negative. As I said, reinforcement can be assertive or unpleasant outcomes, such as writing somebody up or ultimately firing someone. So reinforcement theory basically suggests that behavior is more likely to be repeated if a positive consequence or reward follows it. In contrast, punishment theory suggests that behavior is less likely to be repeated if a negative consequence or punishment follows it. So I will use fishing as an example. how can we make sure or show our staff the consequences of their actions if, due to negligence, they click on a link that leads to a catastrophic impact or data breach for an organization. So these are basic elements of or constructs of various theories that are out there. Now, what influences the motivation? So when we come down to an individual human being level, personal values, needs, and beliefs. We all have them. It shapes our attitude and behavior and often drives to pursue certain goals or take certain actions, as well as needs and desires such as hunger or thirst. These are just basic stuff, right? But it also drives us to go to work every day, for example. Emotions and social influences. So emotions such as joy, anger, or fear can be greatly impact behavior and motivation. People are also influenced by the opinion and actions of others, including family, friends, peers. We see it almost on a daily basis among our peers, among our coworkers, and within our own family settings. One of the most important ones, past experiences. So we all have a various and different childhoods, right? Our past experience also shape our behavior, positive or negative. It shapes our beliefs and expectations, and it can drive behavior and motivation. Culture, that's one of the other elements. So we live in a multicultural environment, especially if you have an organization which is international. You're dealing with various cross-border countries and various types of cultures. So understanding the cultural norms and values play a significant role in shaping behavior and motivation. For example, cognitive process, our thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world around us can influence our behavior and motivation. Reward and punishment, so I think we already addressed that. The anticipation of reward and fear of a punishment can drive behavior, change it, alter it, and motivate. Last but not least is the physiological factors. So as more personal level, factors such as hormones, brain chemistry can also play a role in shaping our behavior, how we think, and how it gets us motivated. Now, there are a bunch of motivational theories out there, but the top three are basically what you see here on the screen. One of the famous one is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. This theory proposes that human needs are arranged in a hierarchy from the most basic physiological needs, like food and shelter, to higher needs, such as self-actualization and love. These elements basically state you cannot move from one to another before satisfying the first one. So this model divides human needs into two sections. One, the basic physiological needs. Second, psychological needs, which again, it goes all the way up to self-actualization and love, which is the highest level of feeling and emotions. And as I stated, if someone, for example, has a problem with covering basic needs such as food, shelter, air, water, or have a safe place to live or work, these two elements by itself impacts individuals' behavior and motivation, because the first focus will be going to the basic needs, basic physiological and being needs, before we come to an extra level of motivating ourselves or motivating our employees to act in a certain way and follow company and organization's direction. Next one is another very famous motivation theory by Herzberg, two-factor theory, that's what it's called. So it's known as the motivation, hygiene, or dual-factor theory. It's widely studied theory in the workplace motivation, and it basically states hygiene factors are fundamental aspects of a job that must be made to prevent dissatisfaction. For example, salary, job security, working condition, company policy, and how much individuals feel they're contributing to the better and good of an organization, or how much their work is valued, plays a significant role in one's motivating behavior, such as employees will become dissatisfied and demotivated when these factors are absent or not met. On the other hand, motivators are a factor that lead to job satisfaction and motivate employees to perform well. So this includes recognition, opportunity for growth and development, meaningful work, and a sense of achievement. So once people or employees feel what they contribute matters, and their work is valued and appreciated, they have a tendency in general to become much more motivated and do better and do more and become much more efficient. Next one is self-determination theory, which that basically suggests individuals are inherently motivated to grow, develop, and achieve goals. So according to this theory, individuals have three basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness, which basically, when satisfied, lead to more self-determined behavior and greater well-being. We all do want to have that sense of love and connection to a thing, group, or organization. Once these basic needs are met, people feel satisfied. That drives them. So this is another theory among the three that talks about how we can motivate individuals and how human behavior and motivation is driven by various factors. Now, changing the gear a little bit. Historically, we human beings are social elements, social beings. We have grown up, or we have become mature based throughout the history, throughout interaction with others. So internet and the cyber world is absolutely, totally new to the human concept and human psychology. This is not natural to our own DNA. For centuries, humans used to be in the fields, do the work, see each other in person, interact. So that changed significantly when we came across this virtual space called cyberspace. So what happened with the introduction of internet? Cyberspace essentially turned into this world of this dimension that changed all our psychological theories and human behavior. People experience cyberspace as the extension of their own minds. So as they're basically, it's transitional space between self and other. So if you close your eyes for a second and you imagine yourself logging into your computer, going into the internet and surfing them, it feels like a time travel. It feels like you're jumping into another whole different dimension. So the door is wide open for all sorts of fantasies and transference reactions to be projected into this space. So under ideal condition, people use this as an opportunity to better understand themselves, as a path for exploring their identity as it engages the identity of other people. Under less than optimal conditions, people use this psychological space to simply vent or act out their fantasies, fears, frustration, anxieties, and the desire that fuels these fantasies. It's a big, broad concept, but as you can see, you can use both ways. If you're a satisfied person, you can use this for much better good, to become much more advanced or grow as a person, but then there's also potential for downfalls. As an internet traveler, or basically a surfer, internet surfer, told me, everywhere I go on the internet, I keep running into me, because that's a self-reflection of our true identity and sometimes our fantasies into the cyberspace, thinking or assuming it's not real, but on the other hand, it's a very, very real environment and space. This brings us to the concept of cyber psychology. So cyber psychology basically is a combination of cyberspace and psychology, and how these two collide and how these changes our perception and our behavior. The way we act with technology, it changes our psychology, and the way the technology acts with us, it also reflects on how we do things differently as we would normally in a real world. For example, this new environment, well, as you see on the screen, there are basically 8 different pillars which it can be combined and create this cyber psychology architecture. You can combine them as you build your own structure and own framework. It's an identifiable environment where person identity is known, and any deviance from established social norms may be such as punished or ridiculed. But again, this is the virtue of cyber space when we go in there. Now, there are different, as I said, there are different elements or pillars within this framework. One of them is identity and self. This is significant because on this dimension, includes all the possibilities for self-presentation that could occur in a particular online environment, including how people consciously or unconsciously use or avoid themselves, as well as types of healthy and pathological aspects of identity that they may manifest in this environment. In this dimension, the question can become, what do we reveal or hide about ourselves in our different online activities? We can be, become, and do anything that we want without even revealing our true selves. Or how do we create an idealization version of our own identity? What hidden and perhaps negative aspects of ourself sometimes slips out in this world? People think this is, again, it's a virtual world, it's not real, but then we realize there's a direct correlation between our physical world and the virtual world, and what goes on each one of them can directly impact one the other. The social element or social domain basically includes the possibilities for creating, managing, and or aborting relationships with individuals and groups, including accurate or distorted interpersonal perception, varying levels of intimacy, and conflict versus collaboration. So when we are in this online world, the way we interact and socialize with others is absolutely subjective. I can write a text, I can write an email, I can present an image, but every single person is going to take this very differently. They can interpret it, for example, a text or email the way they want to, not necessarily what the intention of the writer was. So again, this is a huge concept. Next one is interactive. So this dimension entails how well a person can understand, navigate, and control a digital environment, including the sense of presence and immersion in that place, learning curves, and tendencies to understand the devices and technology basically also lies in this interactive so to say, symbiotic relationship between the human, technology, tools, and vice versa. Next one is the sensory element, which basically talks about the senses. Certainly on internet or this cyber world, we can't smell things, right? We can't see the body language. So that's a whole another dimension that changes the way we used to interact with other people. How do we smell? How do we sense besides what we see, what we hear, and what we interpret it based on our own beliefs and understanding of this world and people and everything else that goes inside it. So it's just subjective again. Reality, temporal, this is time. What is time in cyberspace? Can we go back in time? Can we move forward in time? So that's another element which time changes its meaning within the realm of cyberspace. And that, again, is very different from what we used to in our real world. So as you see, that's another element that changes our perception and psychology. Reality, what's real, what's fake, what's actual. So if you have tried one of those virtual reality goggles, you would feel knowingly that this is just a game, it's just some images and audio playing, but your brain acts just like reality. So if your brain doesn't understand what is real, what is fake, as long as it can receive it, perceive it, it will imagine it as reality. That's the perception. That's one of the, I guess, downfall of our brains. It can distinguish reality from what is fake. As long as it can see it, it will perceive as reality. Again, as I said, the virtual goggles are a prime example of how this works. We talked about the physical world. Physical and virtual, they have absolute direct correlation. What we do in this world reflects on our virtual space because there are certain aspects of our lives now that depends on internet and cyber world. And what we do over there has a direct correlation of what we do in reality in this physical world and physical dimension. So these are basically the 8 pillars or construct of cyberpsychology framework, which understanding these elements can help us better gauge human behavior and understand the changes. Why do people do certain things online versus they wouldn't do on physical world? Trust, for example, falls within the same domain where if you walk on a street and you run into someone, it's less likely that you're going to reveal your social security number or any other personal information about yourself or your family. However, on the virtual world, the research has shown 70 to 80% of people have a tendency to trust others. That's huge. Trusting people on a virtual space, which we have no idea who they are, versus in real life. So the perception of the reality, again, changes when we move into this cyber world. As I said, trust is one prime example. Now, this psychological element collectively impacts organizations and cybersecurity. Cyber criminals use these elements and use that against people, against employees, against organizations to compromise and get into systems, and data breaches happen due to the fact that people have a tendency to trust. For some reason, we like to trust others, as I said, and our psychology and behavior changes in this cyber world. One of the most successful attacks happened through social engineering. Regardless of tools and technology, if someone is volunteering their confidential information, so that's password, usernames, and other stuff, there's nothing that can prevent, at least that we know of, from such behavior from taking place. A little while ago, Sony hack happened, right? So the motive behind the Sony hack was not really about preventing the movie from playing, because eventually the movie was launched on a very cheap domain from GoDaddy for $10, and people were able to log into that website, put in their credit card information, and still view the movie. So if the real motive behind hacking Sony was bringing down or preventing the movie from playing, we know that was not the case, because shortly after, the movie was broadcasted and a lot of people were able to just get in there and do it. Even they could put in their credit card information on a website and continue watching the movie. One of the most recent mega data breaches, if you will, is the MGM data breach. So MGM has the money, resources, best of the breed tools, but it took less than 10 minutes phone call to bring their entire system down, lock them up, and ask for about $100 million in ransom, which to some extent they try not to pay, but it costs MGM so much money. So in this case, cyber criminals found out some of the executives for MGM, and then they called their technical support pretending to be that individual, and the tech person, trying to be the nice guy, reset his password, reset this executive's password. Before they knew, they were into the system and attacking every server, implementing their malware, and so forth. So again, tool technology, all great, but human psychology and us, we stay the most vulnerable individual because of various elements. As I said, our psychology changes when we travel or we go into this cyber world. So now with the exploration, I guess, magnifying AI, things have gone far, far faster than usual. Less human beings are getting involved in attacks. In the next 3 to 5 years, the AI capabilities will become far more advanced that bad guys will start using more often to attack organization and do harm. And for obvious reasons. Well, this is a cognitive process, humans versus a computer or a machine, as a matter of fact. Who learns faster? Well, we do learn, but computers, they have a database of knowledge, basically called knowledge base. So they can act upon the knowledge. So whatever, if they have the knowledge, they can act upon that, potentially learn far better and faster than humans. Memory, we can remember things from probably to a certain extent, but for an AI, the learning and memory is always there. It never forgets unless you change data elements, right? Perception, debatable. We probably have a better perception today, but then in a long term, I think that's going to change and AI will become far more developed and advanced, which we can do a lot of things without human interaction. Adaptability and flexibility. We are usually highly adaptable and creative. AI can learn from this and take human knowledge, human perceptive, human flexibility, and imagination to a whole different level in time. So this is basically how AI is taking over, and for obvious reasons, because potentially in the long term, it can do things better and much more efficient than a human can do. Although it has its own dangers, because the same way that we use for good purposes to do good, bad guys will be using it, and they are, for harmful purposes. Well, I work for DCFS, and our job is to protect children and families, right? That's one of our main goals, protecting their data and systems and everything else that goes across it. It's also part of their physical well-being. Now, one of the sections that we deal with is about human trafficking or sex trafficking for children. This is basically how some of our cyber criminals target our youth between certain ages. They prey on the emotions. Remember, I talked about being related. Each individual wants to be part of a group or thing, the relatedness. So that's basically the runaway homeless children, where they have no potential people or group to belong. Cyber criminals know that. They prey on those things. Ethnicity and culture, also another element that we see very quite often, plays a role in human trafficking. How do they do it? Basically, as I said, they have different ways. They go online to try the manipulation technique, squatting, they exploit their vulnerabilities, especially at certain ages. Kids are vulnerable. We know our psychological perspectives and psychological elements, how vulnerable we can be, especially at certain age. And bad guys use that psychological element against us. Again, this is just one portion of what we deal on a daily basis when it comes to children and families, not to mention the cross borders and going across different countries, because this is a significantly huge business. Sex trafficking and human trafficking, especially children, is a whole separate and very lucrative business for bad guys. Now, I talked about AI. So AI has made it much more complex and difficult for us to trace and go after the bad guys. In the next video, I'll show you how basically an AI created image or a voice or a video can provide a false representation of what the reality is. And this is our next future, that we have to be extremely cautious what is real, what is fake, due to the fact that our psychology can be hacked, our social norms can be changed, and AI has accelerated all that to a whole different level.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. It's me, Ella. Well, a digital version of me, just a bit older. Amazing what technology can do these days, isn't it? All you need are a couple of pictures, like the ones you share on social media, where they can be taken and used by everybody. You know, for you, these pictures are just memories, but for others, they are data. And for me, maybe the beginning of a horrible future. A future where my identity can be stolen, just like that. Where I can go to prison for things that I would never do. Imagine my credit score being destroyed, Dad. Or my voice copied to scam you, Mom. Mom, I'm in trouble. I need you to send me money, please. What you share online is like a digital footprint that will follow me around for the rest of my life. I'm telling you this because I know you love me and would never do anything to harm me. So please, Mom, please, Dad, protect my virtual privacy.
It is pretty heartbreaking, but it is a true story. We do deal with alike cases a lot. So as I said, AI has made it far more easier for bad guys to leverage and try to prey on the most vulnerable population, in our case, children. So as we see, technology is great, but how it's used or misused can be significant when it comes to our psychology and behavior. Another deep fake true story. The finance guy goes into this fake meeting thinking it is absolutely real. So the CFO is there, everybody else is there, this finance worker, this is a multinational company. He's convinced everybody in this meeting is real. Prior to that, he receives a phishing email. He suspects something is wrong, but then they call him to a real meeting to supposedly show that it's real. And he also gets the impression that everybody who is in the meeting is real. However, it was a deep fake generated by an AI. They end up paying $25 million to the cyber criminals. So again, whatever crime that used to happen in the cyber world, AI has accelerated that to a whole different level. In a way, made it so easy for the bad guys to do bad things. Today, this is our cyber threat map or universe, if you will. Threats are all over, and every single individual is a target. We definitely don't want to have this in our hand. So the bad guys have to get it right only one time. We have to get it right every single time to prevent from something like this from happening. So what can we do ultimately? Again, the AI is just getting started. The machine learning and the data, all these interconnected systems. We used to have IoT, but now we will have AI of AIs, which they can talk to each other. Components, machines, our electronics can communicate with each other and learn from each other. It comes down to assessing our risk. What is the risk? How much technology we should use? How we should use it? And then putting controls in place to make sure the risk and the controls kind of weigh each other out. We don't want to be too risky, or we don't want it too strict where business cannot move forward. So finding that balance is going to be key. We have the threats and we have the vulnerabilities. As I said, our psychology is the most vulnerable element because the cyber world changed everything that we know from human behavior. It changes our perspective, changes our behavior, and even the motivating factors are very different in an online environment versus when it comes to the physical world. So certain things that are takeaways, if you will, that what we can do when it comes to basically fostering a more secure workforce or work environment within the organizational settings are listed here, as you can see. So addressing the basic physiological needs, such as providing comfortable work environment, access to easy access to food or water, or adequate rest or break times, providing safety and security, such as secure work environment, making sure people are comfortable when they come to work, either virtually or remotely. They have a safe place to express themselves, they can be heard, and their work is valued. So there are a few elements as I present on the screen without going into the details on every single one of them, but these are certain elements that we as leaders in organizations can implement one at a time to make sure our workforce feels comfortable and they're motivated to follow proper cyber hygiene and cybersecurity. When it comes to cybersecurity training, that's a whole different discussion. When people see value to it and how it directly relates to their job, they're more likely to take it seriously and be more attentive, take ownership of that versus if they're not. Again, being understood, valued, and feeling safe in the workplace can go very, very far. Now, we talked about AI, certain things that we can leverage from the tool and technology that we have on our hand, which is the AI, are, I posted on the screen, we can leverage AI to do a better job in monitoring and online detection. So for example, when someone goes online, even if you want to sign up for social media, there is no controls in place other than a checkbox that says you're 13 years old or older that can consent to terms and conditions of a social media. There's nothing out there that can verify that. And elevating this to a different level when it comes to cyber threats, leveraging AI for better learning and improving the technology and baseline of our environment can go really, really far. Having some filtration in place. As I said, the phishing emails or phishing incidents by far stands the most successful way of cyber criminals getting into organizations for obvious reasons that I stated before, using our psychology. So maybe we can leverage AI to train models for behavior and adding some psychological patterns into this AI models that we're working on as technology leaders or our companies who provide technology and provide AI as a tool, leveraging this for our own benefit. And predictive analytics, we in our department, in our organization, we have so much data about individuals. So leveraging AI to predict the outcomes, especially when it comes to cyber threats, can become a very, very significant step reducing our risk level, because we most likely will know what are the most vulnerable elements or individuals or workforce. For example, who are the ones that are more likely to click on a phishing link? Who are the ones that are most likely to be convinced to give certain data and information out? So combining all this together can strengthen our cybersecurity posture. Historically, cybersecurity was about certain controls. Human element was one of them. But as we move forward into this new dimension or era of AI, we see human psychology and organizational culture plays a significant role in protecting and becoming a more mature cyber secure culture. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Hope it was helpful.